The Heisman Trophy ceremony is tomorrow in New York City. Today, right here on Locked On Buckeyes, we dissect and look into the Heisman Trophy finalists, one of them being CJ Stroud, and if Stroud will win the award in 2022. We have all that and a whole lot more coming on today's episode of Locked On Buckeyes.
You are Locked On Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Buckeye fans? Welcome back to another episode of Locked On Buckeyes for the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jay Stevens, also the host of the Jay Stevens Podcast. It is Friday, December 9th in the year 2022, and today's episode is brought to you by our good friends at BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. During this episode, we will discuss and look into what impact, if any, will losing Kevin Wilson have on the Ohio State offense, and we'll look into should Ryan Day call plays in the playoffs. But before we get to any of that, it's all about the Heisman Trophy ceremony that is tomorrow, and it's all about my guy, Jeff Hunt, joining us once again here on the podcast. It's been quite a while since Jeff has been on the podcast, so I'm glad we can get him on right now. The first week after the playoffs were announced, we know who the Buckeyes will play in the playoffs. It's also the perfect time to get Jeff back on the show because my guy, Jeff Hunt, has a lot to say. Jeff, welcome back.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Jay. Yeah. I'm like I told we talked about it before the show. We say this every time we do a show that our 20 minutes pre-show should probably be a separate podcast. But yeah, I'm vibrating with excitement. It's not that I'm not going to bring the same critical eye that I always do, and I'm not going to judge it. But as far as like at by the time 12:30 Eastern time when they announced that the Buckeyes were in the playoffs, it felt like we had a new lease on life. I'm super excited, and I'm willing to give this team a chance to prove me wrong, to prove most of America wrong, and to show me what we thought we were going to see from day one.
I think a player that could help Ohio State prove a lot of the doubters wrong. I won't say haters. I won't use that phrase or that word. I'll just say the doubters. I think a player that can help the Buckeyes prove all the doubters wrong is CJ Stroud, QB1 at Ohio State, who this year, for back-to-back years, the second year in a row, he is a Heisman Trophy finalist. The other finalists, he mentioned them earlier in the week, we'll do it once again today. The other finalists in this award, Caleb Williams, quarterback at USC, Stetson Bennett of Georgia, the quarterback that the Buckeyes will go up against on New Year's Eve, and then Max Duggan, kind of a year that people knew Max Duggan was good, but I don't think anybody expected TCU to play in the way that they did in the 13 games they have played so far in this season. This is a great time for Stroud, no matter what happens in the ceremony, to use this point in time as a little bit of motivation. Say, hey, I get this opportunity to be a finalist in back-to-back seasons. I need to wear this proud, be happy and excited for this opportunity, but also make sure the next game that I play is not a fluke, and I live up, Jeff, to being a Heisman Trophy finalist in 2022.
Oh, yeah, it's awesome. And, I'll address, CJ first as far as this goes. The Heisman Trophy thing, like, anybody that knows me, anybody that's ever listened to my former show, I'll say now, knows how I feel about this award. And the fact of the matter is if Stroud played in more, like, close games – then he would actually probably run away with this victory to where, like, Dugan, I'm not trying to take stuff away from them. Those guys are gritty. They got it done. They got their teams to victories. It's awesome. But if Stroud had as many close games or, if he had the same stats, but his team won by 7, he would get more credit than he does, but he lost the one that, everybody talks about. We know that. And I'm proud of him, for being there. Is he going to win it? Absolutely not. I think we all know that he's not, because anybody that's watched this as long as I do knows that the way the voting goes and the way the region goes, Williams is the only candidate out west. So he's going to run away with this Heisman Trophy because that's how the writers have always voted. That's how it's always been. But it's interesting. I'm glad Dugan got the invite. I think I would have no problem with him winning just because everything you said, Jay, like he's the one that carried his team the most, which I hate to say that because Stroud did the same thing. But when you do it the way Stroud did by leaving in the second half, and some of that was Stetson Bennett too. Like Stetson Bennett didn't have any of the stats, but also you give him credit for annihilating teams early, but then there's knocks against him for the Missouri game and things like that. He didn't throw his team out of it either. Like a lot of times his defense came out of it. It's a very weird year. But I'm proud of CJ. He's going to go. I outwardly said he shouldn't go after the way they treated him last year. I won't get over that. I thought it was. I didn't think it was proper. I thought he took the higher road and let everybody off the hook. But if I was CJ Stroud, like I'm telling you, Justin Fields would have probably had a fist fight in that game. Like to compare the two. But good for CJ. He's got a chance. He's probably going to finish third. Williams is going to win it. And he did a lot of exciting stuff, and he all the the gotcha plays and all that. I'm not going to count that last game against him. Stroud didn't even play in the last game. I'm going to be fair about that. So it's a very interesting trophy this year, and you're probably going to want to touch on some of like it's a quarterback trophy this year, which is kind of weird. I just want to say outwardly I'm not happy about Blake Corum not getting invited. And I also want to say that like by not getting invited, it's not three dudes that decide who goes to the Heisman Trophy ceremony. They send out the voting slips, everybody votes, they tally up the votes, and then they go by the number of votes. So there's not like one guy at the head of the Heisman trophy ceremony that decides who goes. So there's no one person to focus anger on, but multiple people across the country.
Jeff, I wouldn't just say that the absence of Blake Corum in this ceremony is the only shocker. I think Bijan Robinson deserves it as much, if not more, than Blake Corum.
Fair.
I think Hendon Hooker at Tennessee, I think he deserves a shot at this. I think if Marvin Harrison Jr. played at Alabama, he would get the same respect that Devonta Smith had in 2020. And I'm not saying diminishing what Harrison Jr. did. He's a phenomenal player. He's a great receiver. But you have to remember, Alabama was without their number one receiver, the number one target in that year, and Devonta Smith rose to the occasion. Ohio State going into the season, and Jigba was the number one target, only plays in 3 games. I think he only has 5 catches, doesn't play a full game ever in the season, and then Harrison Jr. rises to the occasion, but no, you're at Ohio State. I do think there is that Ohio State standard that's higher than some other schools, and so a receiver.
I don't even know if it's a standard, Jay. I think some of it is a negative. Like, you're a wide receiver at Ohio State. Like that doesn't matter.
It should matter. It absolutely should matter.
I agree.
Those are just a couple guys I think should be there in the conversation. I do think with Jeff, I didn't ask Jeff this earlier, but I know Jeff's been rambling for about better part of 30 minutes now. Also, I'm on air, some off because Jeff has been itching to get to this show. But I do agree with Jeff. I think Caleb Williams wins this. I think if Stetson Bennett did not play in the Southeast, he would not be a finalist for this award. I don't care if you're Georgia. I don't care if you're the defending national champion. I don't care about any of that. I don't think he is a finalist if he's not playing at the southeastern portion of the country, mainly because a lot of the voters, Jeff, come from that portion of the country. Like a lot of media writers, college football writers are down there, and they're going to be biased towards the best player or one of the better players in the Southeastern Conference. So that's the way the cookie crumbles. I don't like it. You don't like it. Ohio State fans don't like it. You wish CJ Stroud would be the 8th Heisman Trophy winner at the school. Ultimately, I don't think he will be. And I think, Jeff, I'll say this. I'll open the floor up to you on purpose in this way. I think Stroud did this to himself. I think if Stroud plays better against Maryland and rises to the occasion and has a Heisman moment against Michigan, we're not having this conversation right now. Because if you remember, even going into the 10th game of the season, before the Maryland game, even after Northwestern, Stroud was the betting favorite to win the award. He lost the award because of his inconsistent play and the issues that he has in his game. As great of a talent as he is, he was not the biggest player and didn't have a Heisman moment, did not rise to the occasion against Maryland on the road and against Michigan at home. If he does those two things, I think Stroud wins this. But CJ Stroud lost this award by his play down the stretch of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. I after the Northwestern game, I'm like, okay, it's not Stroud's anymore. But then again, it didn't matter to me. I was surprised he actually got invited. I think they just kind of, came up. I assumed it would be, Williams, at the time. And you got to remember that's, I know you remember, Jay, but just to remind everybody, at that time, Hendon Hooker was running away with the Heisman Trophy after CJ Stroud and the Northwestern and I understand and the win and all that. It was a tough day, but like we're talking about how they vote for it. Hooker was running away with it. Then he runs into Georgia, gets blasted, he gets hurt the next week, all that. So, it was tough, but what I would say about Corum is I understand the stats are there and everything, just like you said with Robinson. They did put that offense on his back, and he did go undefeated. Even the game he got hurt, he already had 100 plus yards and over a touchdown. So then what I would say is, like, if you're not going to count, CJ didn't to us show up in the Michigan game. Corum didn't play in the Michigan game. It's just one of those things. It's, the voters see what they see. It's not a NFL prospect award is what I'll say. But good luck to CJ. I do not want to say that like he's not a great football player, but as the way the Heisman Trophy goes, it's just odd that he got the invite over, Corum or, some of the Robinson or some of the other guys we mentioned.
It really is. It's rare that he did get the invite to the ceremony. Jeff, I don't think it's a surprise to many that former offensive coordinator at Ohio State, Kevin Wilson, was someone who did get an invitation by certain schools to potentially be their new head coach. Currently, he was recently announced earlier this week as the new head coach of Tulsa. Many Ohio State fans want to forget about the Tulsa game a year ago, but Tulsa's a good football team. I'm not going to deny it. They're a good football team at that level. Kevin Wilson going out there, Jeff, I want to open it up with this on this conversation. I think first career-wise, this is a phenomenal opportunity for him. And with him being 61 years old, this might be the final time and opportunity for him to go ahead and be a head coach at another level. I think he's been a good coach at Ohio State. I think he's a great offensive mind, but ultimately, I do think he knows at his age, if he wants to be a head coach somewhere else, this is a time to make that move.
Yeah, this is one of those things that I feel the same way about Kevin Wilson as I probably did about Kerry Coombs last year. I think he's a guy that, here's my biggest thing about football now. The Ohio State offense, like, I know how fun it looks and the points and everybody's running all over the field. That's actually the vanilla offense of football now. Like, Jay, you watch a bunch of high school games. I watch a bunch of high school games. To go 4 or 5 wide receivers, to open it up, to run a bunch of stuff downfield, have guys cut underneath. That's great. And I think Kevin Wilson stepped into a great situation to where he had the tools to make that work. I think it's like a chef got fired from a decent restaurant, and then a 5-star restaurant's like, well, you can be our chef. Then everybody's like, this food's really good. Like, well, it was going to be really good. I don't think Kevin Wilson was near the offensive coordinator, because now how I define an offensive coordinator is, do you make adjustments? Do you take advantage of mismatches? And honestly, in his run there, if anything, we got outcoached, on the offensive versus defensive coordinator, especially by the one team that you can't get outcoached against. I'm glad he's got the opportunity or whatever, but I don't think that he outthought the room. I don't think that it was anything special what he did. And when I watch some of these guys, when they go to the next team, like I look at, like, I'm a Dolphins fan. I look at McDaniels. He goes down to, Miami, this year, automatically he makes that offense better just because of schematics, as to where Wilson was like, I got these great play designs. He never really called them in order. Like, I think all season we've said that, like, what was with the play calling, there was never a good blend of running and passing. So yes, am I being very negative on Wilson as far as his performance this year? I really am. Am I sad to see him go? I'm really not. I think he was a very well-paid coach in a great situation, and he coached for a team that was lucky enough to have a ton of talent and make the college football playoffs. And then he took the first opportunity out of town. But do I give him a ton of credit for the success of Ohio State? I really don't.
Yeah, this year's been weird, man. And some of you might want to say, well, Jay, Ryan Day's the offensive coordinator. He calls the plays. Well, he's a play caller. He does have a big hand in the play calling and the game plan of the offense. But so does Kevin Wilson. Like, Who's your right-hand man to go to in the offense, the overall offense, is Kevin Wilson. Brian Hartline for the passing game, Tony Alford for the running game. But your guy that's your right-hand man on offense is Kevin Wilson. And so I want to put a lot of this issue with the offense not just on Kevin Wilson or KW, as I want to call him for short, but also Ryan Day. There's an issue with the offense. And I know you guys, it's Friday, Feel Good Friday. Jay and Jeff are going to be honest with you right now. And we are going to be the guys who we are. And I know some of you love our back and forth. Also love our honesty. That's not going to change at any time. I do want to say, I think there will be an impact with losing Kevin Wilson. I think part of that will be with the tight ends. Because you've seen a little, well, let me be honest with you, some better play from
That's
the tight
what
end.
I was going to say.
Some better play.
Jay, when we did the grades earlier in the year, we did the grades. And then once we started looking at it, we're like, if you take out the Wisconsin game, how good was the tight end play this year?
Stover,
I mean, as far as production, I should say production. I apologize.
Let me tell you.
Stover has played his butt off, but
Jeff, I think Stover flourishes better when he's blocking and there's a guy on the outside of him. It's either inside or outside. It doesn't matter. I do think Cade Stover was a better blocker when it was Jeremy Ruckert and him a year ago with that 12 personnel too tight on one side. Even this year, it was him and Mitch Rossi. Okay. Why do we not see that more? I am sorry. I know it's a Friday. I said it's field. Why do we not see Rossi and Stover on the field together a whole lot more?
I have no idea.
Guys, we are 1 week after the conference championship games were played. The playoffs were announced. And I'm still annoyed about some stuff I saw through the 12 games the Buckeyes played. Jeff is laughing right now, and I do not care. It worked a year ago.
I'm laughing.
It worked a year ago. Why go away from it? And I want to know, is that Kevin Wilson or is that Ryan Day? I don't know, but it could be a collection of the two minds coming together and saying, let's go away from this, even though it worked. Let's try something new. Well, what you tried that's new didn't work as well as you thought it was going to. And now you got me and Jeff on here getting heated on behind the mic.
And here's what we don't know, Jay. And there's no way that we can know this. We don't know like how much whatever faith or percentage of confidence or whatever the Day put in Wilson. We don't know how much of this is Wilson's fault. Like we put all this on Day because he's the guy. You know what I mean? Like if you're the CEO, you're the guy. Like we don't know that. And we ran into a lot of that with Urban Meyer. Like all the times that he would be bent over and disgusted at a play call. You could tell that he had no idea what the play call was coming. And I've said this all year, Jay, you know this, that Ryan Day is an offensive coordinator. I'm not saying he can't be a head coach, but if I would say that this team is better if Wilson was the head coach and Day was the offensive coordinator, because the head coach doesn't do near as much as people think that they do. A lot of their work is done in the off season.
Yeah.
I think the offensive coordinator, I think the game plans, I think the overall take on the game, we were really let down this year. We will never know how much faith Day had in Wilson. And regardless, like if you're at Ohio State and you're a main coach, you're getting paid to do that job. And even if you're not good at it, what would you say last year? We said we were having this exact same conversation about Kerry Coombs. We were like, if you're Ryan Day and you recognize this is a shortcoming in your team, you got to do something about it. He never did anything about it this year. He just kept letting it play out and things didn't progress. They didn't evolve. And now here's what I would say. Ryan Day has 3 weeks to be done with this, put his own, stamp on this, come up with he needs one game plan. He needs one game plan. He knows who he's going to play. He knows when he's going to play him. He knows what he's got at hand. This is his time to shine.
This is his time to shine. A way for him to shine is to work on the play calling, situational play calling, short yardage play calling, and just not just doing things on the opening scripted plays, but also throughout the entire 4 quarters of football. Jeff, Kevin Wilson will still be with Ohio State through the playoffs. He told Tulsa he's going to finish his tenure at Ohio State. And honestly, Jeff, I got to say, I give him credit for that. And I also give Deion Sanders credit because he told the Colorado team he still has work to do down at Jackson State. And so he's going to finish some things down at Jackson State to win a championship and then come be the full-time head coach at Colorado. I want to give credit and appreciation to guys like that are still in season that don't leave for the new job. I mean, it's their right. I mean, honestly, it's their right. They can do that if they want to, but they see a value in finishing the job that they started at the beginning of the season. Credit to Deion Sanders, had to throw that in there. Then also credit to Kevin Wilson. But with Kevin Wilson still staying, people being upset, disgruntled about the play calling at Ohio State, Jeff, I ask you this question. Should Ryan Day call plays in the playoffs?
And I just came up with yes. That is my immediate reaction is yes. I think that, he has the time. This job, I mean, I don't know where you want to rank Ohio State head coach football, job in the entire world, but it is way up there. And this is, Day's time to be like, we need to focus on this. We got to do this. I have to come up with a game plan. We brought in the defensive coordinator last year. Like, Day is not supposed to be worried about the defense. That's the entire purpose of going out and getting what was supposed to be the best defensive coordinator in the country. This is Day's time to really focus. Stroud's not coming back. Like, Day doesn't have to coach for next year with this team. Day has to coach for one game. He can worry about next year, January 10th. But right now he has one game to coach. He's got an NFL quarterback. He's got an NFL wide receivers. He's got NFL offensive linemen. He's got possible NFL running backs, at his disposal right now. And I know Georgia does too, but my point is Day just has to come up with a scheme, a game plan. He has to get a feel for the game. He has to come up with strategy. It all has to be on Day. He just has to be involved in this game and get a feel for it and make this his own, because guess what? Kevin Wilson's not taking the blame for this Georgia loss. Ryan Day is. So I've seen coaches do this too, to where they tell an offensive coordinator, no, I'm good. Go ahead and take off. I think Saban's done that with some of his coordinators. He's lost so many over the years because of their success. I could, if Day was, but sometimes this is where we argue about a lot. Is Day too nice? You know what I mean? Maybe he needs to be like, nah, I got this.
I think he does. Excuse me. I do think Day calls plays in the playoff, and I don't think Ohio State would be the same team offensively minded if he decided to step away from the play calling and allow probably Kevin Wilson. I don't think he would allow Brian Hartline to call plays for the first time, or even I've heard some people say Justin Fry should be promoted to offensive coordinator. I don't think he would allow Justin Fry to be to call plays in this game. No, I do think Day needs to approach this. Jeff, I said it all fair. I'll say it again. He needs to approach this the same way he did in 2020 against Clemson. Use that loss the previous year as fuel, motivation, and figure out their weakness and consistently attack that thing every single time. Now, granted, you got a phenomenal run from Trey Sermon, which was unfortunately derailed by injury, I believe in the national championship game. But Trey Sermon in the Big Ten championship, and then also in that Clemson game, he was as big a part of that win as Justin Fields was connecting with Chris Olave. So I don't want to say it's just a passing game. They found a way in 2020 to rely on the running game, and once somebody got loose, Jeff, they ran with it. They kept giving him the ball. Now, I don't know which back it's going to be, or if it's going to be a back at all. Will it be Mayan Williams or Travion Henderson or Chip Trainum in the most recent game, or will it be Dallin Hayden? I don't know. But whatever 4 running backs that it is that gets loose, allow them to allow the offense to be the best offense that Ohio State can have this year, because you got to give them the ball. I do think Ryan Day can have special things up his sleeve. I've yet to see some of those special tricks he has up his sleeve this year, but I do think they should call plays, and I do think they got to figure something out with a running game. You mentioned it, Jeff. There's no mesh, no chemistry, no gelling of the two facets of the offensive game Well, if you find a way to do that thing very quickly over the next 3 weeks, man, Ohio State could be coming out with a sense of urgency and giving Georgia a look that they've never seen this season, and they have no way to overcome it.
Yeah, it's all about implementing. Can Day implement the RPO, a realistic RPO in 3 weeks? Can he get Stroud to commit to it? Again, we've said it time and time again. Stroud doesn't have to run it,
No.
but if he just takes some chunks, or maybe it's there. Maybe the game plan is Stroud runs for honestly 200 yards and wins the game. It's that's the thing. Then and all year, like I understand, you're playing Maryland, you're playing, Michigan State. You don't open that up. This is the game to where you're like, can you implement a real RPO offense? Can you make Georgia respect it a little bit? They have to respect it a little bit, because if they can pin their ears back, sorry to be so cliche, it's over.
Yeah.
But I also don't think, to be optimistic, this is Friday, Jay. You talked about it. We're in good spirits. This isn't that much different than 2020. It's hard for people to remember how good that Clemson team was. They were coming off a national championship game. They brought a bunch of returning starters back. They had the best, quote unquote, best quarterback in the country that day. And Ohio State, it really wasn't that close.
No.
So like this Georgia team, this isn't a generational team. This isn't a team we're going to talk about for the next, 3 decades of like nobody could beat them. This is a very good team, but it was the same thing in 2020. Ohio State was supposed to get murdered. They did not, because of game plan, because of toughness, because of scheming. This team has exactly what it wanted. All they wanted was a chance, and they got it. It's on them now.
It is on them, guys. It's Friday. I've mentioned it a few times. Jeff just did. Let's feel good today. I know Jeff and I got some things off of our chest. I had a little rant that Jeff came in and said his own piece about that very thing. But guys, let's have fun. It's Friday. Jeff Hunt, I love having you on. And I say stuff publicly without telling Jeff previously, because I know that I have the liberty to do so. Guys, you will hear Jeff once again between now and the Buckeyes game when they play Georgia in the college football playoff. Jeff, thanks for going back on. If you could let everyone know where they can follow you on Twitter. And I look forward to doing this once again with you down the road.
Hey, thanks a lot, Jay. This means the most to me. When I kind of step back from podcasting, I promise you the first thing my wife asked was, "You're still going to do Jay Show, right?" It means a lot to us. I live here in Columbus. Your show is at the bottom line on WTMS. Like, click here to listen to the best, Ohio State, Buckeye football podcast / basketball podcast. I know it's that time of year you can think of. So this means a lot. I want to say thank you for all the support and everything you've done along the way. I never want to stop doing this. You can find me at jhunt006. I'm super active on, the social media, and my takes, I won't lie, my arguments, and, it's kind of what I do is I bring my honest opinion that doesn't always sit right with Buckeye fans, but we can usually talk it out, and we can usually come to a gray area, just like me and Jay do.
We always do, guys. You can follow me on Twitter at jstevens07. The Heisman Trophy ceremony is tomorrow, 8 p.m. Eastern on ESPN. Hold on, Jeff. I got to double check this really quickly. I want to say ESPN.
It is.
It is ESPN. I don't know why somewhere I thought it was ESPN2.
Between you and me, I hope CJ knocks Desmond out, but that's between you and me.
Jeff is choosing violence on a Friday. I am choosing to be happy as we close out the show. Guys, have a great day. We'll be back next week breaking down, discussing the Heisman Trophy ceremony, if Stroud wins or loses, and other things going on with the football team leading up to the game against Georgia in the college football playoff.